Let's now talk books, and Pulitzer Prize-winning author Alice Walker sat down with Book TV to talk about the lasting impact of her novel, The Color Purple, which was published in June 1982. Miss Walker was interviewed at George Mason University, where she was appearing as part of the Fall for the Book Festival. Here's our book review.
Well, for 30 years, this book has been in bookstores. It's a winner of the Pulitzer Prize, the National Book Award. The author is Alice Walker. The name of the book is The Color Purple. She joins us now here at George Mason University. Miss Walker, 30 years. What are your thoughts about The Color Purple being around for 30 years?
It's amazing to me that it's been 30 years. It seems so recent in many ways.
What do you think about its staying power?
Well, I think it's very relevant to people's lives, and that they get a lot of nourishment and, substance out of it. So it's very good for me that it's staying around.
30th anniversary. We're here at George Mason. What is the campus of George Mason doing? Why are you out here in Virginia?
Well, there is a large celebration of literacy and of learning from books called Fall for the Book. And I think there will be many wonderful writers talking about how they write, why we write, and communicating with the students and with the people, the townspeople and other people who come to hear us.
And the whole campus is reading The Color Purple, is that correct?
Reading The Color Purple, I think. And I hope that, they get to the end of it. Where did Color Purple come from? It came partly because when I was 9 and 10, I lived with my grandparents, and I loved them very much. And I wanted to, as an adult, spend more time with them. Of course, they had died. But I wanted to spend time with that kind of ambience of peace and slowness and lived experience. They had lived really wild lives, some of them, as younger people. And I wanted to get into that so that I could know them better.
Your most recent book is The Chicken Chronicles.
Yes.
Are you raising chickens?
I'm raising chickens.
They're at your home in San Francisco area?
In Mendocino, and there are now 15 of them, and a rooster whose name is Howie. I named my rooster after Howard Zinn, who was a great friend that we lost last year. And I love raising them. They are quite wonderful beings.
Why are you raising chickens? What attracted you to chickens?
Well, they are part of my growing up, and I had lost touch with them, and I needed to be back on the farm, back with farm animals that I had known as a child, because I wanted to reaffirm my relationship to really the animal world.
Alice Walker, you've written what, 20 books?
30-something.
30. Mm-hmm. But when people see you, they immediately go to The Color Purple, correct?
Yes.
Is that, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's my ancestors' doing. I credit my ancestors in many ways with the success of this book, because I did it out of a love for them, and I feel that they think, well, she took really good care of us in this book. I haven't heard any complaints from them. And I think they want to take care of me by being this signal to other people that here is someone who is writing. And so I feel very happy about it, because otherwise, who knows? I mean, it's possible that no one would know anything about my work.
Alice Walker, you talk about Color Purple going from the religious to the spiritual. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Well, it means that for me, my spirituality is rooted in nature. It's not about organized religion at all. And I wanted to share that with people in this book. It's a theological book, The Color Purple. It's about who is God. And for me, God can never be the traditional Christian God. It just doesn't work, even though I was raised as a Methodist, in a Christian church. So I wanted to affirm for people that we come here with our intuition about what is divine intact. We have that, all of us, or most of us, and that we should have more faith in it, that the beauty of the earth is divine. I mean, this is, we live in heaven already. So that was partly what I'm exploring in The Color Purple.
At what point in your life did you decide that a Christian God wasn't for you?
Well, when I was 13, my parents and my family always went to church, and I decided that I found my church in nature. And my parents, by then, I was the last child, so they were too tired to force me to go to church with them, as they had done with my 7 siblings who are older. And I got to stay home, and while they were in this tiny church, which is a very sweet little church, but it seemed to be so little compared to the universe, and I wanted to be in the whole thing, you know. I used to sit in church and look out the window at, you know, just how big, you know, how grand the heaven is that we already have. So I stayed home, and I would just run around the house and look at, you know, storms coming, for instance. I love the way the waves would appear in the sky. They used to look exactly like ocean waves, the clouds. And then it would start to rain. I mean, what incredible magic, what divinity there. So it just seemed very clear to me that for me, it's all of it that is God. It's not, you know, something you can make so small that you can stick it in a church and think that just by going there every Sunday you get it. That seemed just impossible, even as a 13-year-old.
Alice Walker, we spent a couple hours at your home a couple years ago for our in-depth program. Thank you very much for that. But the first question I asked you was about gardens, because you always write about gardens.
I always write about gardens because gardens were always in my life. My mother was a fantastic gardener, and I continued the tradition. And I love the idea that I can partly sustain myself by growing my own food, which I do. You know, I have all kinds of vegetables and fruits and trees, and I want this for everyone. I want everyone on the planet to immediately start digging somewhere and planting things to love, but also to eat, because, you know, this is our mother, and she can sustain us, but we have to work.
Now, with your Chicken Chronicles, you talk about as a child that one of your jobs was to chase them down for Sunday dinner and wring their necks.
Yes.
Do you
eat your chickens? No, I don't. No. I do eat chicken, though, but I don't eat my chickens.
Your chickens are pets?
No. They're individuals. And actually, the first batch died. I have only 2 of the first set. Did you know chickens only live about 3 years? I had no idea. I thought that my chickens and I would live to be, you know, maybe they would live maybe 20 years, and we would just go off into the sunset together, because I love them so dearly. And then I discovered that they actually have a very short life. And I started finding them dead, you know, just in the chicken yard. They would just drop dead from old age. A lot of predators got, you know, some of them, but they have a short life.
So what do you do with your chickens?
Well,
eggs?
Do
you eat the eggs?
The eggs, yes, we do eat the eggs. But for the rest of them, you know, they either die, they're eaten by predators, or we give them away. And we don't ask when we give them away what the people are going to do with them.
Back to the 30th anniversary of The Color Purple, what did you think of the musical with Fantasia? Were you part of that?
The musical Fantasia?
No, the musical with Fantasia.
With Fantasia. I liked all the people who were in The Color Purple. To me, she wasn't as much a Celie as some of the others, because she was much bigger. But that's one of the things that can happen when you're collaborating with, you know, people making a musical or a film. They tend to choose the people that they see who will have a big drawing power. But she was wonderful, but not really the Celie that I envisioned originally.
When you get invited to speak to an English class or at a university, how many times do you accept the invitation? And do you have a set or standard speech that you give the students?
I never have a standard speech. In fact, I never really know what I'm going to do until I get there. Often I will choose a few things that seem to me rising to the top things. You know how you go somewhere and you think, well, what seems to be worth sharing today? And that will rise to the top, usually in meditation. But I don't have a set speech, no.
So when you spoke here at George Mason, what rose to the top?
Well, I have it hasn't happened yet, you know, it's still coming, but I'll read The Color Purple, because I think people expect that, and I will talk about that. But I also want to read a piece that I did about marrying two good men. I was ordained as a minister to marry this couple, and it was just such a wonderful experience because I loved them. And they asked me, even though one of the men, his father was a Quaker minister who could have done it, but for some reason they preferred to have me do it. So I wanted to share that with people because I think especially at a university, it needs to be affirmed that love is love.